All right, everybody, welcome back to the Realm of History. Today we're here for Chapter 20 live review. We've got a couple things on the docket. Of course, I want to make sure that you check in. Let me know that you're here. Give me a little shout out. Definitely like to see, all of you guys here and having a chance to ask those important questions. I see right now 53 total on the viewing, so make sure that you're checking in so I know that you're here. A little bit of a live agenda tonight, pretty much the same thing. I'll talk about some key advice just here in a minute, go over some selected, mostly key terms tonight, to be honest with you. And I will do a little bit more on the short answer, talk about some key textbook pages. I'll actually show them to you on the screen. We'll have a little bit of AP talk and some questions and answer sessions. So a little bit of key advice right now. A couple of things I'd like to say. Number one, make sure that you're following along, writing some important things down from this session in addition to what you have on your review sheet. Number two, I want to make sure that you read through your notes carefully. I think that reading through those outline notes is the best way to study in conjunction with your review sheet, at least for the content portion. The AP portion may be a little bit different. Kind of use the tools and the necessary means that I've taught you about in the recent past. Number three, pray for the right things. Remember, this quiz might be a challenge for you, and that's a good thing. But there's a lot of important things that you need to be praying for: your health, the health of your family, the safety of your family. Saying the prayer of gratitude, thank the good Lord for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon us. And just asking the good Lord to guide you to use your talents to the fullest. I think if you waste your talents, it's kind of the wrong way to go about things. So you want to make sure that you're praying for the good Lord's blessings. I think that tonight, tomorrow, we want to be here now. That's my motto. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the task at hand, practicing metacognition, thinking about how we're thinking about how we're approaching our studies. And I think that's going to really get us ready for tomorrow's quiz. I would also say you need to say thank you to your parents. If you need to go do that right now, please do so. You need to be grateful to them and all the things that they do for you. And then, as always, you want to meet the challenge. You want to rise to the occasion and make sure that you get the job done tomorrow with your best effort. If you really give tonight studying and all day today and then tomorrow your best effort, nobody can really fault you. You can look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I gave it my best shot. And you'll feel really good about yourself, whether you do well or not. Last thing is, while you're doing those things tomorrow, bring some items for the food drive. Donate. There's a lot of people depending on us as a school. Each year we feed a lot of people with our food drive. So if you've forgotten about it, put your canned goods, put your items on the list that has been circulated on Instagram and throughout campus. Peanut butter, jellies, no glass, canned vegetables, chunky soups, things that are like ready-made. Macaroni and cheese, things that are ready-made for people who are homeless and don't have a stove or an oven. Maybe they might have access to a microwave, something like that, but those are the things that the people really need this time of the year when it's so cold outside as well. So think about those things, set them by your door that you exit so that when you leave in the morning, it'll be right there. You'd have to trip over it to forget it. So that would be really good. I will say, working this morning with some of the great members of the Athletes for Christ, at least at the library, we had very minimal participation. I would say less than 5% of the overall population. And I know it was pretty much the same for the boys. So we need a really big run if you guys want that day off after the Super Bowl. As of right now, it's not going to happen. I mean, there's no way. We've had so many days off, guys, that for you to get that day off, you're really going to have to come through in the next really 2 days. Okay. Now, I am going to move on down my list, and I'm going to go ahead and get into the key terms, starting with joint stock companies, okay? Joint stock companies are very similar to modern-day corporations. We learned about how corporations work with investors buying shares of stock. Well, the way that these operated were based on investors putting in money for a common cause. And I'll tell you, in the 1500s, 1600s, that common cause, the goal of most joint stock companies, were for exploration and colonization. So what they would do is they would pool money together. Hundreds, maybe thousands of individuals would put money toward an expedition. And then if that expedition struck gold or silver or something along those lines, then whatever percentage you put into the expedition, you got that percentage of the overall profit. So it's kind of like playing in a stock market game, but it did fund a lot of the voyages and expeditions that led to colonization. Okay, this question came up a lot today, so I wanted to talk about it extensively. Talking about the African slavery system versus Muslim slavery versus American slavery. Essentially here, what you need to understand is that the form of slavery in Africa was based on tribal warfare. So tribes would attack each other and then they would take captives. And yes, they would enslave those captives. But you could earn your freedom based on hard work, which was not something available in some of the other systems. Second, the Muslim form of slavery. The Muslims also enslaved Africans, and they historically enslaved more African people than any other group. And they definitely had some social mobility, though, in the Muslim system, and they could earn their freedom, and it wasn't a hereditary theme either. And then in the American system, as I talked about today, it was really very harsh. There was no social mobility. You couldn't really earn your freedom, and it was a lifelong and then also hereditary ideology too. So your children were going to be slaves and your grandchildren were going to be slaves. Whoa, we have somebody who wants to say hello. You guys want to say hello real quick? Come here, Ella.
Hi.
Yeah, say good luck. Say good luck on the quiz.
Good luck on the quiz.
Okay, you're on TV. Look, you're on TV. Oh my gosh. All right, girls, you have a great night. Love you.
Bye, students.
Okay, love you.
Bye, students.
Be good. And shut the door. Okay, will you shut it back?
Yep.
All right. Quick commercial break there. Sorry. All right, let's go to the encomienda system, which is up next. The encomienda system is really a forced labor system put in place by the Spanish. Okay, so the Spanish basically make the natives work on either agricultural fields or in mines, and we're really mining for gold and or silver, and they're therefore providing a really cheap source of labor. So that's what the encomienda system was really all about. Another big question today from a lot of students was global trade. It's not really like a blue term in the book. It's really just kind of understanding that global trade is really exemplified by the Columbian Exchange, which is those exchange of items, and also the triangular trade system, which we had on the board today and went through. It involves, many trade partners and multiple items being exchanged kind of back and forth there. Okay. Speaking of that, let's talk about the Columbian Exchange. Columbian Exchange is the global transfer of food, plants, and animals from the Americas to the rest of the world, but also from the rest of the world to the Americas. So it's the exchanges of the Eastern and Western hemispheres. There's a lot of charts about this. I'm going to show you a quick picture here so we can kind of go over it. This is one on page 572. So I want to make sure that you understand that this is a great source for you to study from. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up right now. On this page, you can definitely see that there are items going from North America all the way to Europe, and this is because of Columbus. I'm going to go through the whole list: tobacco, squash, sweet potato, avocado, peppers, like chile peppers, cassava bread, peanuts, potato, tomato, corn, vanilla, soybeans, cacao beans, which is chocolate, pineapple, quinine, and turkey, and pumpkins. So those are all items that went from the Americas to the world. Now, coming from the rest of the world to the Americas, many different diseases: smallpox, influenza, typhus, measles, malaria, diphtheria, whooping cough, which we have a vaccine for today. Little ones like my kids get, when they're young, you get the whooping cough. If you get the vaccine when you are maybe expecting, like if you're expecting, or if you're a man and your wife is expecting, it's important to get the whooping cough vaccine so that you don't pass those germs on to your young children too. So that's something that you will have to get again at some point in time. Livestock, which are things like cattle, sheep, pig, and horse, were also introduced to the Americas from the world. Important grains like wheat, rice, barley, oats, honeybees, sugar cane, bananas, grapes, citrus fruits, onions, olives, turnips, coffee, and peaches and pears. All of these items are, this is not an exacerbated list. This is simply some basics. The AMSCO book has a much larger list within it about some of these items as well. If you did the reading on 4.3, you would know that for sure. Okay, next we will flip back. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, and we'll flip back to our normal look. One of the things that I think is important also is mercantilism, right? Mercantilism is this economic theory that a country's power depends mainly on its wealth. Remember, it usually involves trying to create what we said was a favorable balance of trade, which means you want your country to export more than it imports. And you want your country basically selling more than it buys from other countries. And what you're really looking for is like self-sufficiency, where you create your own products within the country. I think what this led to is the very competitive nature between European countries, and it led to something called nationalism, which we'll learn about in our class in the future. Okay, next is, I'm going to lump the Atlantic slave trade and the triangular trade system together. We definitely had the diagram on the board today. Well, I think it's important to take another look at that. And so I'll pull it up here in just 1 second, and we'll talk about that as well. So give me just one more second, and I'll share the screen with you again, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about with this, just in case you missed it, or if you were spaceballing during class session today. Here's what you got. You've got the Americas, you've got Europe, and you've got Africa. Guns and gold are being sent to Africa in exchange for slaves. The slaves are sent to the Americas, though, to work on plantations. Then in the Americas, they're producing raw materials like raw cotton, so on and so forth, and they're sent to Europe, where they're then manufactured and then sent back to the Americas for sale. So that's really what you're looking at as far as the triangular trade system today. Okay, I think I can come back to the normal view. Next, we're going to talk about disease. Really, you just want to know, in the case of this chapter, I mean, disease kind of ravaged the Native American population. Really, most estimates are between 60 and 90% of Native peoples died due to disease, especially along the coastlines. All right, the coastlines, there was a lot of death related to, of course, disease, and especially smallpox. Smallpox was really the big one. Not many students were able to answer this question correctly today, but we talked about inflation. Inflation was mentioned in this chapter, and it was due to well, first of all, what is inflation? Inflation, once again, is a decrease in the value of money, and it's paired with or coupled with a rise in the prices of goods. We are experiencing inflation in the United States today. We see especially the increase in the price of goods. However, it's questionable about the value of the dollar. You could look at the value of the dollar in the world currency and probably find that that is true. But that's an example of inflation. In Spain, especially during the time that we're learning about 1500s, 1600s, they experienced inflation due to the surplus of gold and silver coming in from the American colonies. They, of course, used gold and silver as their form of currency. And so the more gold and silver you have coming in makes it less rare, and then therefore makes it less valuable, right? So money is only valuable because it's rare. Once it becomes less rare, it loses its value. Okay, the Treaty of Tordesillas, I've also lumped that together with the line of demarcation. And so I want to share again with you a photograph of the map that talks about, of course, the line of demarcation and what I mean by this. So if you take a look at this right here, okay, here's Spain in the yellow. So anything on the map in yellow is areas that Spain got in the Treaty of Tordesillas. Portugal is the small country in purple. So anything purple on the map were lands granted to Portugal because of the Treaty of Tordesillas. So this line right here, this is called the line of demarcation. It was basically at 60 degrees west longitude. all right, 60 degrees west longitude. So anything west of that went to Spain. Anything east of that, this portion of Brazil, Greenland, which there wasn't really much there, and then also Africa, the western coast of Africa especially, was granted to Portugal. So those are the ideologies that you want to take from that. Okay, we're moving along fairly well. I had one more thing that I wanted to show you, and I'll show you that real quick as well. This one is basically a map that talks about the different labor systems in the early modern period, which is what we're learning about. It's on AMSCO, page 224. It talks about, okay, what is a slave? What's a serf? What's an indentured servant? And then, hey, what's a free peasant? What's a nomad? What's a guild member? So it talks about what type of work they did, kind of the locations that those things took place, some of the limits and freedoms that they had as well. So I think that's a really important page to study in getting ready for tomorrow's quiz paper. Okay, we're moving right along. Next order of business before I get into the short answer possibilities, I want to talk a little bit about the AP info. So I want to give you some AP tips. I told you there's about 10 questions on the AP portion. First thing of advice that I'd like to give you is that the way that I make my questions, okay, I have a generator that comes from the AP College Board. So like when you go to AP Classroom, it has like sample questions and videos that you can watch. For me, it has a test generator. And so what I can do is I can punch in, all right, what unit am I covering? I'm on unit 4. What topics am I covering? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then what it does is it generates questions for me that I can create my quiz papers out of. I will say that the vast majority of the questions that I pulled from those generators were from topics 4.3 to 4.6. There are a few questions from 4.7 and 4.8, but the vast majority are from 4.3 to 4.6, and they deal with disease, migration, colonization, and things of that nature. So those are really the big picture topics that I am going to talk about right now. So I've got the actual quiz paper in my hand right here. So I'm going to go through like, okay, what's each question about? The first one's about migration. And it talks about, why did Native Americans get sick from these diseases when they were no longer happening in Europe? And it's basically due to the fact that they didn't have domesticated species and they didn't have exposure to outside elements. They were pretty much sequestered or living in isolation for the longest time in world history because nobody else really knew about the Americas, right? So that's really one of the big factors there. The second one still talks about disease. It talks about the Mayan peoples, the remnants of the Mayan peoples who were living in small villages when the Spanish came over. And it talks about how kind of like they started to get this disease and this sickness. The next one talks about the Atlantic slave trade. So the triangular trade system that we talked about, section 3. And then, of course, your AMSCO reading talks about the different numbers and why the slaves were brought over by the Portuguese and other European entities. Then the next one talks about gold and silver mining, how the Aztec people, once they were conquered, were forced to work in gold and silver mines. Talks about that quite extensively. The next one talks about the consequences of the slave trade, how it had an impact on African civilizations. So that's really important there. Then you have 2 SAQs. The first SAQ talks about colonialism and how native peoples responded to being colonized or conquered. And it talks about one tribe called the Comanche tribe from the American Southwest and how they were pretty successful at like trying to fight back against the Europeans. And it talks about some rebellions that they led. We learned about Pope, the Navajo chief that rebelled and had some success. And the Comanche were part of that success too. So it's a very related story there. Then the second SAQ is really focused on Spain. We know that Spain was like really one of the predominant powers. They had the strongest navy in the world at the time. They experienced a golden age during this chapter. And then it also talks about how they kind of wanted to conquer based on the necessities of the church and Christ, Jesus Christ. So it talks about religion getting involved in those colonization impacts or efforts. So those are some big clues as to what's going to be on the AP. Kind of went question by question there to give you a little bit of insight as to how you can try to frame your study from AMSCO and beyond. Okay, now what I'm going to do before I get into the question and answer session is I'm going to talk about some short answer possibilities. So we'll take a look at, hey, what are the things on the sheet that were predominantly under the notes? And then we'll also take a look at, one of the key things that we can take into account here as far as, what do we really want to take from this whole thing? So we are going to take a look at first the Columbian Exchange. I kind of already went through all of the messages there that we had in play. So I showed you page 572 already on the live. So I don't think we have to spend too much more time on that one. I would know like 5 to 8 items that were introduced by the Americas to the rest of the world and vice versa. It's going to be 2 separate questions that you might be up against. Once again, the triangular trade system, I already showed you that on the screen. So we went over that today from the board. I told you guys to take a picture or draw it on the back of your review sheet. So we should be really good there. Just need to make sure that you're labeling it properly. That's a really important factor there. Consequences of the Atlantic slave trade. There were a couple of questions about this one today. What I would say is that you got to really understand that consequences can be negative or positive. They could lead to good things or bad things. Obviously, if you're looking at it from the African side of the view, you lost a lot of your key people because of the slave trade. A lot of your strongest, most fit, a lot of your most educated, your smartest individuals were taken and traded off. So that decimated African society. On the other side of it, if you're a European, like your economy benefited from slave labor. They didn't have to pay them, and they were producing massive amounts of tobacco, cotton, sugar, which the Europeans exploited. So I'm not saying that's positive, but I'm saying if you're European, you're making a lot of money. If you're Portuguese or Spanish, you're making a lot of money off of this system, and that's a terrible thing. But that's some of the consequences there on each side. Okay, let's take a look at the Native American relationships with the French and the English. Well, we learned that with the French, they had this thing called the middle ground. It was like a mutual benefit. They both kind of benefited very well from each other's goods, and they also had a good working relationship based on the fur trade, because the French were getting furs from the natives that they were trapping, and then the natives were getting guns and steel and metal pots and so on and so forth, all those different items. So they had a really good relationship. And the French, as I told you in section 2, they weren't really here to colonize. They're really here to come for economic reasons. They didn't bring a whole lot of people, so they didn't really pose a great threat to the native population. Next, I think I want to talk about the relationship with the English. Relationship with the English was much more stressed based on religion and land. The English wanted to come here and stay. They wanted to colonize. They wanted to expand. They were coming for religious reasons. They were coming for economic reasons. So as they came, one of the things that they really were looking to do is stay. So they posed a much greater threat to the natives, and the natives were more apt to attack them. And I think what you have to understand is that the English did not agree with native religions, and so they wanted to Christianize them more so than did the French. And so that was one of the big factors that led to a lot of conflict. 7 key factors. I'm not going to go over those tonight. I went over them extensively in class today. I kind of told you everything that you really need to know. So at this point, I think I'm feeling pretty confident, and they're also written in your notes that I handed to you, as I did also describe today in class. Okay, We made it. It is now time to get into our question and answer session. So I'm going to go ahead and look through the comments right now. And oh, look at that. The most recent one I see is Marissa, 922. Welcome back, Marissa. We've missed you in the live reviews. Let's see. Oh, this is great. I love this. Yes, Wyatt, thank you. God bless you. Yeah, I love it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's some kind of tennis club that's trying to steal all my track girls. And I'm losing sleep over it, to be honest with you. It really bothers me. I think I'm in a depression because I don't want to lose any of my track girls, and that's, it does really bother me. So tennis is a banned word from the realm. Don't say it again. Only you can say it, Wyatt, since you're on my side. Okay. I am searching for real questions. So go ahead and fire those away, and I will do my best to answer them. Yeah, Billy, I just did that one, right? Hopefully you got that one. If you didn't, if you want to know more, go ahead and throw that question back into the comments, and I will get to it. Master Ozog's here. He's writing in, looks like Russian script. So if you could help me out and translate that. Oh, there it is. It says, I love you. I don't know what the other thing says. Hopefully it's nothing bad. But yeah, I love you too, Master Ozog. Miss you, buddy. Miss you. You should stop by the realm and say hello. Yes, Roman, you're correct. Do we need to know about capitalism? Okay, yeah. So it's cute profile pic, by the way. It's not a key term like on the review sheet, but it's really involved in joint stock companies, right? Capitalism, big proponent of joint stock companies. So knowing joint stock companies and mercantilism kind of brings capitalism into the fold. So yeah, you will need to know it. It's going to help you, definitely. Ask me specifics, Master Casey, and I'll answer anyone that you want. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you ask me specifics, I got you. Like here's one right here, Vasco da Gama. Yeah, Lola, Vasco da Gama was key explorer from Portugal. He's really highlighted in chapter 19, which we covered last week, or actually 2 weeks ago now. Yeah, he is the first to sail around the tip of Africa and then all the way to India. He made it to the port of Calicut for the spice trade, which opens up at least a sea route to Asia and India for, of course, the Portuguese. Casey, you paying attention because we're going through some of them right now. Ferdinand Magellan, Danny D, Novi Special. We got 3 Novi members already on the live review. So sign of strength, rep Novi, rep the realm. Yeah, we got Ferdinand Magellan. He and his crew were the first to basically sail around the world. We call circumnavigated the globe. So he died in the Philippines because he got involved in a local war, but his crew finished and made it back all the way to Portugal. So it was a 3-year trip and circumnavigated the globe. What's up, Johnny C? Welcome, Junior Baller. We miss you. God bless you. Patterson, who won the review? Patty McFatty. That's what he's called on the Instagram. Who won the review game? Your class won the review game. 2nd hour with the big victory, 4 out of 5. Nobody was even close. 7th hour girls who won last week. What an anomaly. They got 0 out of 5. Sign of weakness. Yeah, that's where we're at. Ozog's translation, glory to the master and his bald head. I'll take it. I'm getting old. I'll take it. But yeah, thanks, Master Zog. Definitely something he would say. Yeah, definitely something Zog would say. Amanda got one of those real questions. Do we need to know about specific African and Native revolutions? Okay. The Stono Rebellion is a African American revolution that was talked about in Section 3, and the Native American Revolution, which was Pope's revolt, the Pueblo Revolt, which was talked about in end of Section 1. Those are 2 that I think you should know, Amanda. Yeah. Moving on down the list. Inflation. Mainly for Spain, or was it? Well, mostly Spain, because if you look at the Treaty of Tordesillas, Spain got the biggest end of the deal because they were the ones bringing in the boatloads of gold and silver from Mexican mines. So it's really more so Spain, Roman, because of the currency system and the influx of gold and silver coming over, which is what they use for their coins. So that what I would say, yeah, you're right on with that being Spain, the biggest factor there. Yeah. Okay. Henry Hudson, Chloe. Henry Hudson was a Dutch explorer, and he's looking for what's called a Northwest Passage to Asia. So he's trying to go up through Canada, and he doesn't make a Northwest Passage. It's ice up there, so you can't really get through. But he does discover things like the Hudson River, the Hudson Strait, and the Hudson Bay, which you can look on the map. It's that big bay in Canada, so toward the center portion. So that's what you really want to know about Henry Hudson. Founding New Netherlands. Yeah, so Montezuma, we got a question about Montezuma, and then we got a question about Montezuma and Atahualpa, Anthony. So I'm going to answer both of them, Anthony and Hudson. Montezuma is the Aztec leader at the time of the Spanish conquest, and then Atahualpa was the Inca ruler at the time of the Spanish conquest. Okay. For more information on those guys, see the handout that I gave you from section 1. Keep it classy in those comments, guys. Don't be saying mean things about people. I don't accept that. I don't do those things. How important are the other explorers in the notes, but not in the review sheet, like Jacques Cartier, Samuel de Champlain? Obviously, in the big grand scheme of things, like for the AP test at the end of the year, they are important. For this quiz, they're probably not going to make an appearance if they're not in the review sheet. However, always remember, when you're doing SAQs where you're writing or you're doing short answers, like the more examples you know about something, the more specific history that you can provide, those are always really helpful things. Yeah, Mr. Jenke, going over Hernan Cortez. Hernan Cortez was the Spanish conquistador that led the Spanish on the conquest of the Aztec. Okay. Please make the quiz open note. I had you a few years ago and really think you should help them out. You got to give me some real info on who this is, because I'd love to reconnect with you as far as understanding who you are. Hopefully one of my former students. Obviously you said you are, but I'd like to just let me know who you are, and maybe I'll consider it. But also, yes, rep the realm. Definitely rep the realm. I don't know about this green trees. I don't know what that's a reference of, but I'm not sure. Okay, let's go ahead and any more questions? Go ahead and throw those on the list. Get your questions in before we check out for the night. Oh, I was asked to mention that people should pop out. That's the words that they told me. Pop out to the Brother Rice basketball game, St. Mary's versus Brother Rice at home. I think it's tomorrow night. But on that note, what I'm thinking about is February 21st. Hey, here's the deal. Everybody goes to the boys' games, right? Like I go to the boys' games and there's a huge packed student section. I go to the girls' games though, and nobody's there. Like literally nobody's there. Like I went to I was at one of the games. It was just me and Ben and Grant. So if I was going to say we're going to do a Realm extra credit, it's probably going to be for a girls' basketball game. And the one that I have on my calendar is February 21st versus Marion. Marion's a much bigger school, so that might be a really fun game to go to if we could get a Realm night, like where we all show up. I mean, I want all the Realm to show up. I have 130 students. If we all showed up and cheered loud, I think those girls would really appreciate that. Literally, nobody goes to their games except for their parents. So I think that would be something nice to do. We got a real question coming in from Jerome. Is it significant to go in depth about religion along the Columbian Exchange? Well, most important, Master Jerome, yes. For the AP portion, especially on the SAQ, that could come into play on the type of questions that are there. I can tell you that. Second, I think when you're talking about the relationship between the English and the natives, I think that's really an important factor, Jerome, because it did lead to a lot of conflict and tension between Native American tribes and the British. Yeah, your boy Metacom was a Native American chief of a tribe called the Wampanoag, and he led a series of attacks on colonial villages, which led to an uprising known as King Philip's War. The English called Metacom King Philip because he looked like the Spanish king at the time, who was King Philip. Just went over Metacom. Casey, defining the key places is really difficult. That's why I really don't assign the key places. So I just want you to know kind of like how they intertwine. Like who from Spain is important, who from Portugal played a role, what did Portugal do? England, obviously, of course, the Netherlands. Why were people trying to get to India? What did India have? You know, how did the Bahamas play a role here? Well, that's where Christopher Columbus first landed. Caribbean. What about the Caribbean? They had sugar plantations there. The French, the Dutch, the English had a lot of different colonies there. So, you know, those are some of the things you just want to be able to say, okay, how does it relate to this chapter? Kylie, La Malinche was the translator. So today we kind of went over, all right, La Malinche could translate from Mayan to Aztec. So what you really want to have a good understanding of is the fact that without that translation, there really was no way that the Spanish could converse with the Aztec people. So she was really paramount in talking diplomacy, negotiations between the two sides, so on and so forth. Ashley K. Well, Amerigo Vespucci was a sailor and explorer, most well known for charting maps along South America. So the Americas are named after him because he did a lot of the first exploring and map making along the coastlines of South America, Central America. And so Americo, America, that's where the name comes from. Yeah, we definitely covered John the Soft Sword. Everybody remembers John the Soft Sword. Pretty funny stuff. Spanish alliance with Tlaxcala. So the Tlaxcalans were a native tribe that hated the Aztec. And so the Spanish, as the Quetzalcoatl theory buys them some time, they get into a nice relationship and alliance with the Tlaxcalans, which they only have 500 men, the Spanish, so it brings in about 30,000 more soldiers to help them fight against the Aztec when it does actually come to warfare. It took a year and a half, though, to come to warfare. So it was a long time before it actually came into a battle. Yeah. Pizarro was the Incan conqueror. So he was a Spaniard. He's a Spanish conquistador. He led the conquest of the Inca in 1531. Some of the comments are outlandish today. Okay. I'm looking for some real questions. Any real questions? I'm going to wait a couple more minutes and then call it a wrap. Maybe for the year. See how it shakes down. If green trees reveals himself, give us an open note. No, I don't think so. He said some bad things. Quetzalcoatl theory. Yeah, I mean, Danny, this is the idea that, let me summarize it for you. It's basically the idea that the Aztec believed that the Spanish and Hernan Cortez at first were gods who had returned from a prophecy. So the whole factor of it is that they didn't attack them right away because they thought they might be these gods that they believe in. And so why would you attack your own gods, right? So like they're seeing that they show up on these big ships. They got these cannons. They think the horse and the man is one beast. They have muskets. They're riding on horses, so on and so forth. Well, Master Green Trees, I just think it's probably not the proper forum for that type of help. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't know anything about the problem either, so I can't really help you. Sorry. Okay. Well, it does, Lucas, but it's not going to have an impact on this quiz, so you won't have to worry about it. If you just want to cut things out, you know what I mean? Okay. Any other questions? Real questions, if you know what I mean. Okay. I'll stay on for about 1 more minute, and then we got. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really want to stop them. I just don't know how much longer I can keep the pace up. I heard a lot of comments that they really are helpful, even if you don't. If you like, I'm like, why are people not coming live? You know what I mean? So that was kind of my thing. But people are saying that they use them even after, the live is over. So I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit to it, and I really enjoy doing it. So I'm going to consider what I can do. We'll see how it shakes down. Okay. I hope you had a little bit of fun tonight. There was actually some pretty funny things that were talked about, not by me, but you know what I'm saying. All right. Okay, looks like we are out of real questions. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I want you to have a great night. Don't forget to donate to the food drive. It's really important. Study up. I love all of you. I love my students. And if I can do anything to help you, I definitely would do that. So keep that in mind. And we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night. Make sure you say thank you to your parents. All right. Take it easy. Signing off.